Hello and welcome to the NBA Market Advantage podcast. I'm Big Italy 42. He's Jason Gilbo at JGilbo11. Of course, talking about pricing differences between FanDuel and DraftKings and where you can kind of, find guys at better values. Starting off with Pau Gasol, who obviously has different position eligibility also. He's a center on DraftKings, power forward on FanDuel. FanDuel has him priced way up still, $8,900. For a guy that even with Joakim Noah out, still playing low 30s in minutes, not really a guy you even really consider outside of a GPP or like a game stack maybe at that price on FanDuel. But on DraftKings at $7,800, plenty of other centers that we like, but definitely a guy you can consider at that price there, especially with the double-double bonus.
Yeah, I'm with you there. I really like Gasol on DraftKings. I mean, one, you can actually roster two centers, which I like tonight. But I mean, Gasol's just not priced highly enough. I mean, I think 8,900 is really steep price, definitely just a tournament level. But I mean, he makes for a nice cash game option on DK at his price.
Yeah, and speaking of cash game options from that same game, actually, Taj Gibson, 4,800 on FanDuel, 55 on DraftKings. He's just getting big minutes, and he's not a huge offensive player, but he's a guy that contributes elsewhere. Like last game, for instance, played 38 minutes against Toronto, just 4 real points, but 11 rebounds, 2 assists, 2 blocks, and a steal, 25.2 FanDuel points. So I think on FanDuel, he makes a lot of sense. Power forward, not a great position tonight. I mean, there's some good options, not a lot of great options. So if you lock in guys like Thad Young, Taj Gibson, that's probably going to be, your popular stack there. And it doesn't cost you very much. And Taj has played at least 33 minutes in 4 straight games, so you're going to get the opportunities there too.
Yeah, and Indy's really struggled against opposing big men this season, so I definitely like Gibson.
Yeah, good spot for him. Ricky Rubio next up, $1,000 difference, $7,500 on FanDuel, $65 on DraftKings, and this is a guy who's coming off of a couple more huge steal games. I mean, his last 2 games, 39 and 38 FanDuel points. In his last 5 games, he has 4 steals, 0 steals against San Antonio. Kind of get a pass now, and that was a blowout anyway. 5 steals against Indiana, and then 4 steals against the Spurs the second time around. So this is a guy at DraftKings that might end up being a ridiculously good value against the Utah team that, yes, is a good defensive team, but of course not the team defensively they were with Rudy Gobert. And, they haven't defended guards well this season either.
No, they haven't. They're kind of average against guards. And, I mean, you look at Rubio, he put up 39 DraftKings points against San Antonio in that last game, 14 assists, just 7 points. So I definitely think he has that range tonight against Utah, who kind of just they've allowed a couple big games lately to opposing guards. You look at Ish Smith the other night, who busted off a big game. But Rubio's a great cash game play, I think, on DK, just at that price.
Yeah, absolutely. Next up, Rajon Rondo. He's just $7,800 on FanDuel, one of the cheaper prices we've seen him in a long time there. $8,400 on DraftKings. That last game against Golden State was a really weird one for Sacramento. Cousins was in all sorts of foul trouble, plus then he got ejected, which kind of makes sense for him. He was probably going to end up being disqualified in that one anyway for fouling out. But Rondo didn't play well, got in foul trouble too, only played 18 minutes. So with Rondo, you can take a little bit of a price difference for him on FanDuel, and it's not a bad spot for him either.
No, he's playing Philly, and there is some talks about Cousins possibly being suspended and missing tonight's game, but I haven't seen anything yet. I think that would kind of hurt Rondo a little bit. I think his assist numbers have been up with Cousins in the lineup there, but on DK, where he's the same price as Kyle Lowry, I'd easily like Lowry over him.
Yeah, absolutely. Karl Anthony Towns, another guy that has a nice price difference here. $7,600 on FanDuel, $68 on DraftKings. Obviously facing off against Utah. The Utah name, like we said, kind of more intimidating than it should be right now with no Rudy Gobert down there. And Towns, his minutes are finally getting back up. They were down there in the mid to high 20s there for a while, but 35, 34, 40, and 31 his last 4 games, and had that huge game against Boston, big game against Indiana. So he's a guy that, you look at in your GPPs, obviously there's centers you prefer much more than him, dollar per dollar, and, floor-wise tonight. But he's a guy that, I'll give a look to in some GPPs, though.
Yeah, especially if Favors sits. They're already without Gobert. If Favors does sit, he's in a great spot. He's going to be facing guys like Trevor Booker, and Trey Lyles is down there, forgetting another name that plays for him. But I mean, three kind of guys that aren't known for their defense at all. So I think it's a pretty good spot and should be pretty low owned.
Yeah, absolutely. Amr Caspi coming off of the best game of his life where he went bucket for bucket with Steph Curry there for a little while. All right, I say a little while, but 36 points in that one, though. 40.7 FanDuel points. You're certainly not chasing that type of production, but this is a guy who's been consistent. I mean, he's had a lot of games in the 30s, and it's crazy to think that his peripherals were so lacking in that one that he only ended up with 40. But either way, $5,600 on FanDuel, 62 on DraftKings. I'm probably not paying 62 for him on DraftKings, but it is Philly, and it's potential that he gets run with second unit if it does get out of hand. I mean, I don't know. Sacramento's not a good team themselves either, so this game certainly could stay close until the end.
Yeah, I think it does stay close, and it's probably going to be one I get bits and pieces of in my lineups. But Caspi's just been shooting the ball crazy well lately, 64% in the last 5 games, 64% from 3. I mean, we saw him go 9 of 12 from 3 in Golden State, which is just insane. And it just seemed like Curry was just taking a step back, and then Caspi would take another step back and shoot and make the same shot. So that was fun to watch, but I kind of agree with you there. I think he's more in play on FanDuel, where he's a bit cheaper. 6,200, it's a little steep, but you do get that 3-point bonus if he gets hot again.
Yeah, good point. Brandon Knight next up, $6,900 on FanDuel, 75 on DraftKings. Getting a ton of minutes right now with Eric Bledsoe hurt. Last 3 games, 41, 38, 38. Hasn't been tremendously productive, but we know he has that big-time upside. Obviously, a game against San Antonio, they don't have very many scorers that are even in decent matchups. Obviously, no one going anywhere near Kawhi Leonard's going to do anything. You don't expect the guys down low, John Lawyer and company, are going to do much offensively. So Brandon Knight, this could be a game where he takes a ton of shots because he's going to have not a good matchup. It's still the Spurs, and you're not going anywhere to target them, but the best matchup, I guess, of the players for Phoenix. So if we see him take 20-plus shots here, he certainly could pay it off.
Yeah. I mean, he went 18-8-3 last time against the Spurs. I think that's pretty much what you're going to get from him if he does have a good game. I can't really see him having a ceiling tonight against a good Spurs defense. It's just too tough of a matchup, even though it is the best matchup among the Phoenix players.
Yeah, and they are huge underdogs. We should mention that. So It's certainly possible the Spurs blow them out again. And Kemba Walker next up, coming off of a ridiculously good game. One of quite a few big games he's actually had this season. 60.7 FanDuel points against the Lakers. Obviously, this matchup is not the Lakers. It's Chris Paul. But Chris Paul has also given up a couple big games to opposing point guards as well. $8,400 on FanDuel you don't like, but $76 on DraftKings, certainly one you can consider for Kemba Walker, especially with confidence riding high with him. He's now got back-to-back games with at least 20 real points. Certainly a guy that's playing well, and he does have that upside you want for tournaments.
Yeah, and I think just with a lot of the top options in great spots tonight, and Isaiah Thomas sitting around that same price range, should get overlooked tonight. So I think his ownership's going to be pretty low, and he obviously carries a very high ceiling that you'd want for tournaments.
Yeah, absolutely. One more guy here. We talk about him every time on the Market Advantage. It seems that he's always playing. Brook Lopez, DraftKings, still not a fan of his. He's only $7,000 there, $8,300 on FanDuel. But, I mean, I don't think the price hike's ever coming because 4 of his last 5 games, he has at least 40 points, 48, 49, 42, 47. Game in between wasn't so bad either at 29.5. Facing Nikola Vucevic and Orlando, who obviously Vooch is going to be a popular play today, but he's also not a great defender. So you could imagine certainly both these guys having big games. And $8,300, no way I'm paying that price on FanDuel when I can have Vooch for about the same. But on DraftKings, I'm certainly going to give him a look.
Yeah. I mean, that's just kind of been the story of the season. I mean, centers have been kind of underpriced on DraftKings, and it really makes you want to roster a ton of them. Because at their prices, I mean, I really like Gasol, Vooch, and Brook Lopez tonight.
Yeah, there's a lot of good spots for centers tonight, so certainly going to be some nice diversity in lineups. But that'll wrap things up here for us for the Market Advantage. Find us on Twitter at DF Cafe. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. We've got lots of other great content at dailyfantasycafe.com.